South Sudan is the only oil-producing country in East Africa. Prior to the conflict in 2013, over 350,000 barrels of oil was being produced per day. Presently, about 185,000 barrels of oil is being produced daily. With this comes alleged violations being committed by the oil companies operating within the country. Join us as I sit down with the writer Ngor Jameson Panchol as we discuss this and more on Beyond the Headlines. In March 2020, Ngor Panchol, the former chairman of the SPLM-IO Youth League, was appointed as Minister of Petroleum. Along with his appointment, he is tasked with regulating the operations of the companies in the oil fields, ensure that they are tasked with adhering to environmental regulations, among other things. Thank you for joining me here on Beyond the Headlines, Ngor. I appreciate you coming on to discuss this important issue. Why did the Minister of Petroleum, Ngor Panchol, order all the oil companies in the country to undergo environmental audit, transparent vetting process during the award of contracts, and also the implementation of the Human Resource Manual?
Thank you for hosting me today. I'm pleased and honored to have an interview with you. I will be very brief. It is an obvious case for any minister that is working for a reform agenda, at least to have a transparency and accountability for the state. And basically, all the order that the minister issued, in the agreement, the rehearses. As you are aware that we only have the only document that is guiding, that is the rehearses, the agreement. And for that case, I will start with the Human Resource Manual. One, about the Unified Human Resource Manual policy address. It's about to address the gap between the nationals and the foreigners working within the oil companies. It starts with the salaries, allowances, the medical cover. For example, if we are talking now about the default in the one of the leading oil company, let me give an example, the default, GFOX, and ESPO. So within this oil, the president of the default earned from 70,000 to 75,000 US dollar. That is the salary, net salary, apart from other cover, the insurance, then the allowances, if you are from Malaysia and from China. So the vice president who is South Sudanese had 38,000, okay? 38,000 US dollar. Now you can see the gap between the vice and, yes, you can see the gap there. Then also when you come, we have what we call GM, the general managers. The general manager is happen that you are foreigner from this say country, if you are Malaysians or you're from China, you hand 56,000 US dollar. 56,000 US dollar at the vice president of default and 38,000. And the vice is a big hierarchy. And then the foreigner who is a GM, the general manager, and this amount of money, 38,000. If it happens that you are South Sudanese, the general manager, you earn only 7,000 US dollar, okay? And then the foreigner who is in the same position with the South Sudanese earn 56,000 US dollar. So you can see the gap between the vice president who is a South Sudanese and the foreigner who is a general manager and the president of the company. Then who is a foreigner. Then at the same time, between the general manager who is South Sudanese earning 7,000 and the foreigner who is a general manager earning 56,000 US dollar. When we also come to the managers.
So are you saying the difference between 7,000 and
56,000? Yes.
That is such a huge gap.
It's very huge, my sister. So that's a huge gap. And then if we come also to the managers also, they are very high. 54,000 who is a foreigner, manager can earn that money.
And this is per month we're talking about.
Yes, per month. The manager can earn abruptly 54,000 and then to 54 to 52. That is a salary for the manager. Then if it happens that you are South Sudanese, then you earn less, around 5,000, 4,000. Okay, 5,000, 4,000, 3,000. These are the money the South Sudanese who is a manager at the oil field and within these operating companies, oil companies in South Sudan. Now, if we are to talk about this, it is very crucial for South Sudanese to address the issue of unified human resource manual because the minister saw this as an exploitation to the South Sudanese.
It
And
is
he
a
had to
clear
come out clearly.
exploitation.
Yes, I had to come out clearly to make sure that all these injustices are addressed within the operating oil companies in South Sudan, either being GFOC, SFOC, DFOX. These companies are doing this, and they are owned by the Malaysians and the Chinese.
And what are the specific names of the oil companies, both Chinese and Malaysians, that are operating in South Sudan currently?
Well, we have three key companies so far I know that are operating here in South Sudan. We have what we call DFOC, that is done Petroleum, and then we have what we call GFOC. It's a Greater Pioneer operating company. We have what we call ESPO, that is Sud Petroleum operating company. So these three companies, they work in collaboration with national companies called NALFED. I hope you're aware of NALFED.
Yes.
NALFED is a body that regulates these operating companies. Then the NALFED is among them, work with them. This is a company that regulates. However, nothing much has been seen from the NALFED. Try to, as a sector within the oil sector, they are trying to please the partners. But anyhow, it's a body that is supposed to regulate these operating companies in South Sudan.
So the minister is in the position to oversee the function and the operations of NALPET and also the foreign companies that are operating within the country.
Yes, that's the task of the ministry. The minister is in charge of policies and then implemented and supervised by the national company, which is a NALPET. It's a government-owned company, and government have a share, a bigger percentage. So it is the one who is supposed to be in charge to supervise the operating companies within the South Sudan, especially the oil companies.
Yes. You know, over the past few years, reports have resurfaced about oil companies operating in South Sudan violating environmental regulations, which has resulted in the loss of fertile land, and abnormal development of children born close to the oil fields. Can you explain what an environmental audit is and its implication to the country and its citizens?
Yes. Well, when we talk about the environmental audit, it is a very crucial part that everybody needs to listen. The few definition of the environmental audit, it is a systematic, documented, periodic, and objective evaluation of how an activities and the process of ongoing projects to determine how far these activities and the program conform with the approved environmental laws that we have clause within the agreement that actually talk about the environment and how the resources should be managed. So on this account, this is where we have seen a lot of things happening in Upper Nile and Unity State. Government has not been actually much because, you know, we are coming from a state that was not caring about the southerners before. Sudan was just just working hard to make sure they're getting oil in source, but they were not protecting the environment. So this culture has carrying on from that time after we gained the independence. So the South Sudanese do not bother much. The companies were left to do whatever they think. The environment, the well were not treated, the waste were not treated. So everything was left open. They just go and put the products in an open environment and leave it like that. So you have heard of, you have seen in the social media rather, there's a lot of photos coming from the Unity State and Upper Nile of the women giving birth to the child with the defects, and then animals dying in this area in large numbers, and also birds If it happened that the bird messed up and went to that area, can easily die. So this thing has actually killed a lot of life, being insects. The plants are not there so far. That area is desert. So there's nothing growing in the area.
Given that there seems to be quite an excessive degree of violations being committed by companies operating in the oil sector within South Sudan, what institutions have gone ahead to audit these companies that are operating in the country?
And so far, I will give you what you have not yet asked. There's a need because we are talking about there's what we are supposed to talk. There's what we call cost recovery audit. The phone out that this company is called E&Y. It's a Uganda brand, but it's international, but it's based in Uganda. They conducted the cost audit recovery. Then they found out that there were money missing, 418 million US dollar from these operating oil companies. And then another one is called MIT partner with South Sudan brine. Okay, they also did a cost recovery audit in 2013 to 2014, 31st December, and then also E&Y 1st January 2015 to 2016, 31st December. Also, there's what we call KCMMJ, Uganda brand. Did also cost recovery audit in 2017 to 2018 December. The total sum of this money that are missing from these oil companies are supposed to, this about the transparencies, about the part I missed before about the transparency process, is about 3.3 billion US dollar within this audit has been done, the 4 audit that has been done so far. So these oil companies owns amount of 3.3 billion US dollar. You can see with this struggling economy, we are missing this money through this oil company. So there's a lot need to be done to make sure that this money are recovered.
In your recent publication titled "A Noticed Tension Between Chinese Oil Companies and Petroleum Ministry is Escalating," you wrote, "ARCUS, as the supreme law of the country, clearly states on Article 4814 that the current employment in the oil sector shall be reviewed, and given that employment in this sector has not been based on merit and competence, but largely on ethnic, political, and regional considerations. Of course, much of such favoritism is engineered by government officials and condoned by these oil companies. This information is not only disheartening, but also disturbing, given that we have young adults, both women and men, who have graduated with degrees in petroleum, but yet they find it very difficult to get a job within the oil sector in South Sudan. So can you go ahead and elaborate on this statement that you wrote about?
Yeah, you happily put it. That is so disheartening. For sure, it's so disheartening. We are seeing a lot of engineers loitering around in the country, in the street of Juba. The better example that I can tell you about, one of them is a guy called Jock Magai. The guy graduated in 2015 in Nairobi University with a bachelor degree of petroleum science. And then also he went to China and completed his master's in petroleum engineering. But up from 2019, after his completion, he has not yet been assigned. So these issues are everywhere. And to come to you, to answer you, that was just an example. When you look within the oil, the operating oil company, there's no advert. There's no advert for the job. You get a recommendation from the general, from your uncle who is very powerful, from your father who might be working with government, from your relative, if you have a relative within the oil company. So there's no fair process. And this is why I said before that it is engineered by the government official and condoned by the oil companies. The oil companies should look at the people they are employing, their capacities. Whom are you employing? Is this person qualified? And if not qualified, why don't you look for the qualified engineers and the qualified people that are supposed to fit in a certain position within? But because Chinese and the Malaysian, they don't care. They're after business, and their policies always, especially Chinese, that China means business. They don't mind about whether you are doing something for yourself or not. So basically, this this is supposed to be monitored by them, and also the government should not involve inside. They're supposed to allow those who are competent, those who have qualification that can take them there.
Yes. So I have another question. In relation to the oil revenue, the citizens of the country have yet to benefit or even to see a dime of the oil revenue. Where is it going? Because it's definitely not reaching the population at the grassroots level.
Well, this is it is a question for everybody within the country. Everybody is he or she is asking. They're asking themselves, where the money? Before the issue was about payment of the transit fee to Khartoum. By then, because Khartoum was owning us some money, but within the agreement, the payment is supposed to be done last year in 2020. That is whereby we are supposed to pay transit fees and other fees that were demanded by Sudanese. So the government was using this leverage as a way of telling people that the dollar is down and we are paying Sudan government. However, the little the government gets, we don't see where it's going. You can see there's a hyperinflation in the country, and then also there's absolute poverty within the state, within South Sudan. And the amount of the money they earn is not disclosed. There's no transparent process because they are supposed to always be open to the public that this is the amount of the money we get monthly, and then through the channel it through the central bank. And for that, they are not doing that.
Now I want to go ahead and move on to what has been the accomplishments of the Minister of Petroleum since his appointment in March of 2020 last year, and what are things that he has yet to fulfill or that he has not fulfilled at all?
Oh, well, yeah, thank you for asking that question. However, I might not be very sure of what you have done because I'm not employees within the ministry. I'm just only the concerned citizen. So, but what I'm so far aware of is about his policies that have now gone to the public about the environmental audit, about the unified human resource manual, about the transparent process of vetting for the companies. Now, this is a positive step. It's not yet an achievement because there's some cartel that are inside trying to sabotage, trying to make this process not going through. He's working hard to make sure that all these things are implemented. And this will be his achievement. So far, I know there's no achievement I'm aware of.
You wrote that attempts have been made to terminate or to oust the Minister of Petroleum Port Control from his position. Who or what institutions are involved in these attempts to oust him? And what groundwork have they laid to see that it could happen?
Well, yes, as I said before, that this Chinese and Malaysian, the oil who have this oil farm in South Sudan, are very powerful. They have a cartel network. I will be using a cartel, repeating it many times because I cannot mention them the institution because it's very sensitive to mention this institution. But anyhow, there are those working with the government, either in army or in presidency. We have those groups who are facilitating the corruption, who are trying to benefit. Because if you look at the money demand by this auditing, they call recovery auditing, it's 3.3 billion. So if you can use like 100 million to bribe the people and you remain with the rest of the money, then you have lost nothing as a company. So they use the money they have to lobby the government official to support their position and trying to sideline the position of the minister. One is that the agreement is very clear. Agreement, the minister that come from other party cannot be terminated by the other party or nor degree out without consultation from other party. Now, if SPLMIO have not seen anything wrong with the Honorable Fotka, then Fort Kang is at the safe hand. However much Chinese are trying and Malaysian, they will not manage it because agreement is very clear. Unless there's a rotation of the ministry, but for them to, at least they convene, but it's very hard to convene the press by president because it's not complaining, though Chinese are trying their best. So these are a group of cartel, I can call them the cartel network. These are the one working, and that, to be very honest with you, I got some information that they went ahead and threatening the minister. That if the minister cannot comply with it, then he will face the consequences of having not, if it's not stopping pushing this agenda of auditing, environmental audit, and human resource management, and plus other transparent processes supposed minister to do, then they will deal away with it. So already
you also mentioned that the South Sudan ambassador to China was summoned by the Chinese government. Discuss that briefly, please.
Well, yes, the Chinese government summoned the ambassador to explain why the minister is so hard on them. And why is it not going to spoil the bilateral relation between the two states? They try to, and then the response from the ambassador, I'm not aware what the ambassador said. I also relate that the oil companies here, also their team, the president, went ahead and met with the president. And also the statement from the president is not yet known yet. So they are trying their best to make sure that this decision is reversed. And the message I want to tell South Sudanese regarding this is that they don't need to be put. You will benefit later. You will recover 3.3 billion. Then the government, which is now living through loans, getting a loan from us as the one using for the expenses. There's no national budget for the year. This money can supplement the budget of the country, and we can even move away from the high inflation. So I think it's a good move for the minister, and our people have to stand, our government have to stand with the minister and support his position of pushing hard the Chinese and the Malaysian to recover this money, and also to work on the environmental audit, because these people need to be compensated. The people of Ruweng, the people of Sarjas, the people of Lynch, and this oil field area, because they've already lost a lot.
Thank you, Ngor James Panchol, for joining me here on Beyond the Headlines. We appreciate the quite informative information that you have provided us here on the program.
Thank you. It's actually been a good interview. And then I'm very happy that you are doing this for the interest of South Sudanese. Keep doing so. And the only message that I can leave is that we need to be very brave as South Sudanese. Let it stand for our rights. Let demand them, and then let's work for the interests of our people.
And to our viewers, thank you for joining us, and don't forget to join us next time for more discussions on issues that are relevant to South Sudanese, both within the country and also in the diaspora. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page at Sunrise Media.